Thank you, Mr. Joshi, dignitaries on the dais. I think I must first say the presentation by LG was brilliant. And I think one of the elements of that is the hallmark of success of Korean brands in India. You saw a challenge, but you didn't stop. You just said, let's go on. Because a lot of companies that come to India from abroad, they see a barrier in India, they see it as a challenge, and they wait for that bridge to be made before they can cross that river. Whereas Koreans, they get into the river and they cross the river and they start building. And that's an example that I take everywhere across the world. No other country has really come in and made India its home like Koreans. And really, we saw that at a demonstration today. And I think one of the reasons, I'm just trying to figure this out. Yeah. I think it's going ahead. Yeah, thank you. So one of the reasons, or rather one of the features in our relationship has been that a bulk of our investment traditionally has come in from the Western borders. So, if you look at our historical charts from 2000 or maybe 90s, our leading investors typically are the Western nations. But if you look at the recent past, maybe 1 or 2 years or 4 or 5 years, it is increasingly being pivoted to the East. So large economies like Korea, Taiwan, and increasingly some ASEAN countries are looking at India as their home. And in fact, Korea has an interesting statistic. 26% of all FDI from Korea just came in the last year alone. I think I'm fighting with the operator over here. Yeah. Sorry, say that again. Okay. Let me just try it once more before. Okay. And one of the reasons, obviously, has been the strategic shift that has been happening globally. But we believe that the Korean companies, the Korean business community over here, has largely been driven by demand, and they've preferred India over other economies, largely driven by demand. Recently, we've entered into the phase of demographic dividend, where most of our population a majority of our population are going to be in the earning phase rather than the spending phase. In fact, by 2025, we'll be one of the youngest and largest populations on the planet. 1 billion of us will be below the age of 35. Half of us will be below the age of 25. And for a consumer goods producing economy like Korea, I think that's a great statistic for you to carry back home. Because at the age of 25 or 35, we really are starting to beginning to buy our first houses, cars, electronics, and the first major purchases of life. So truly speaking, the economic engine of India is really yet to begin. And we do realize that, we are a story in progress. There is a lot of challenge for business coming into India, and we are working on it. But essentially, we are trying to activate that population. So today, if you look at our digital aspect, we are at a 550 million internet population in India. If you look at it one way, we're still the largest population not on the internet. And so, nearly 1 billion of us are still not on the internet. And that opportunity, that number is reducing at the rate of 3 internet users per second. And out of those 3 internet users, 2 internet users are coming to the internet for the first time, and they're accessing the internet in their own language. And I think I've got a chart here right after this. Yeah. So this sort of compares where we were a couple of decades ago, and where we are today in terms of internet penetration. I think you can very clearly see using this statistic, and we can show other statistics along this sector, that there is a clear hockey stick or an exponential growth that's setting up here. And that consumer demand is being built on this basic trend. So we are actually building a lot of the digital infrastructure, which is really activating this population. So we've got 1 billion bank accounts. 300 million of those were created in 4 years. Those 300 million bank account owners had never seen a bank before. You're talking about Aadhaar, the biometric identity. We made 1 billion biometric identities in 6 years. Facebook took 7 years to reach that number, and we had to go in each and every district and village to do this. We have a 1.2 billion subscription number over there. And all of these are tied together and essentially unleash a great, powerful force. I mean, for business, I think one key takeaway, if it weren't for these three put together, a startup telecom company that started 3 years ago would not be the #1 telecom company today. Reliance Jio is the #1 telecom company today, and it started only 3 years ago. It acquired customers at 1/6 the customer acquisition cost globally. And there's a Korean story behind that as well. So Samsung's 4G technology or LTE technology saw large-scale deployment for the first time globally with Reliance Jio. And that would not have been possible were it not for the basic infrastructure that we have built today. So, I mean, just a few examples. Obviously, LG, yes, every home knows LG, but we also know there are a number of other Korean brands you would think are Indian. So, Lotte, I'm pretty sure 20-year-old would be still confused on whether Hyundai is Indian or Korean. India is a global export hub for Hyundai, and increasingly a lot of brands are making India their global export destination. But I just wanted to focus on some of the other areas that probably Korean businesses could look at. Again, just highlighting some of the crucial statistics why Koreans are in India. 130 phones manufactured every minute, 13 refrigerators sold every minute, 3 ACs sold every minute. So essentially, we drive safe, we sleep safe, and we eat safe because of Koreans today in India. I think that's a great, great testimony for Korean investment in India. But going forward, I think Korean industries, Korean sectors like chemicals, defense, textiles have a humongous opportunity in India, and we are beginning to realize and invest greatly in these sectors. Every sector has $1 billion figure or $1 trillion figure. To be honest, these are figures that we could find in public domain and we can estimate for the next 3 or 4 years. But if you take it to the next 20 odd years, it's much bigger than that. Renewable energy, I think when we made that claim that we want to be the leader in renewable energy 4 or 5 years ago, I think a lot of the world did agree that we could do this. But today we're talking about world's largest solar plants, world's only solar powered airports, and many such firsts in India for the first time. And this is increasingly unlocking an opportunity which I don't think we've even 20% covered. And an exciting new opportunity for us is financial institutions and venture capital investments in India. I'll come to that later, but I think an element that we touched upon in the speakers who had mentioned earlier in the speaking, a lot of companies globally are now looking at India at R&D destinations. It's not just a low-cost manufacturing hub for global companies in India, and especially Korean companies are looking at India as R&D hubs. And these are hubs that are increasingly becoming centers for global product development, not just local content development. A lot of companies have come to us and said that the quality of innovation that is happening in Indian centers is the same as it's happening in their home centers. And the only difference is that the go-to-market time in India is 1/4 that as compared to their home centers. And we are seeing a lot of testimonies come with that. And I think there's an increasingly innovative skill that companies are recognizing where global supply chains are sort of being pulled because of that key skill or innovative ability in India. But behind that, I think there's an entrepreneurial spirit that India has. And we at Invest India are working towards supporting that ecosystem. We are already one of the world's largest startup hubs. We've got 50,000 startups, 20,000 officially registered, but we are the number 3 country in the world in terms of unicorns, number 2 in the world in terms of number of startups, and number 1 in terms of the rate of startups every day. So we have 4 startups opening every day in this country. And the exciting thing is that, and this is where Korean businesses should really listen, is that the exciting thing is the startups in India are coming from the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, and they are solving for problems that you and I have never faced before. They're solving for problems for the next 5 billion in population in the world, which has a completely new market, which I don't think any of the top businesses in Korea and India are really looking at. And they are, and put together, and some of these innovations in joint ventures together can really access new markets across the world, especially in Africa and Southeast Asia, where some of the technology is yet to reach. Well, to enable this, we worked with our Korean counterparts, and we launched an India-Korea startup hub last year in the presence of the 2 prime ministers. And we've already run 2 challenges. We've got 2 sponsors, and we're looking for corporate sponsors again, where we've identified specific challenges that these corporates face, and we're trying to find specific Korean and Indian innovations to solve those challenges. Going further, what we're doing is we have a catalog of innovations in India. So for Korean companies looking to do innovation in India, I think this is a fairly good place to start, and especially for smaller companies that probably don't know where to start in India, so they have a problem. This is one place where they can start and identify solutions for their market research problems very quickly. Again, for some of the companies that are looking at India for the first time, what we've done is we've gone across the country, we've identified nearly 5,000 projects worth $200 billion and more, and we've put it all there for public information, for public use. And essentially what you can do is either use it as information on economic activity or participate in tenders or projects and identify where you can really be part of the supply chain. And one of the things that we are also working on, I think, the companies like LG and Samsung, they are fairly well established, they have internal machinery to support themselves in India, but we don't want for every Korean company to have a new adventure when they come to India. So we try and make information easily accessible, especially cultural information where Korean communities exist and where infrastructure, civil infrastructure, where they can support their life in India. And we actively go out there and support as Invest India on building those relationships and ecosystems in India. And one of the things we proudly house within Invest India is Korea Plus. This is an initiative between the government of India and the government of Korea, where we are working with more than 50 companies from Korea on their investment plans in India. And the scope of work essentially is limitless. We can do the smallest of things, from providing information to identifying partners or identifying policy challenges and working with the departments to ensure that you have an easy time in India. In fact, Korea Plus recently organized a golf tournament for Korean CEOs, and that was really positively received. And the encouragement is there to do something more next year as well. This is our dedicated website for Korean businesses in India. Ladies and gentlemen, we are your team, and we will await your instruction. Thank you for your patient listening.